Napoleon Bonaparte and the FBI. At first glance, it seems absurd. How could the most feared military strategist in history be connected to one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world? It sounds like a wild conspiracy theory, but the truth is stranger than fiction. The emperor who reshaped Europe, who bent nations to his will, and the federal force that now guards America's most classified secrets, what could they possibly have in common? The connection is unexpected, almost impossible to believe. And yet, hidden in the pages of history, lies a name that links them together. Because while Napoleon never set foot in the United States, his legacy crossed the ocean in ways no one could have predicted. One of his own bloodline left a mark so profound on American history that its echoes can still be felt today within the walls of the FBI headquarters. A forgotten link between empire and investigation, war and justice. This is the untold story of how a Bonaparte shaped the very foundation of the FBI. To understand this bizarre connection, we need to go back in time, to the year 1769, an island in the Mediterranean, Corsica. A boy is born. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte. No one could have imagined that this boy would one day rise to become the ruler of France. But Napoleon was no ordinary man, a brilliant strategist, a master of war, a leader with an unstoppable ambition. At the age of 24, he commanded his first army. By 30, he had made himself first consul of France, and in 1804, he did something that shook the world. He placed a golden crown on his own head and declared himself Emperor of the French. Napoleon was not just a conqueror, he was a visionary. He reshaped Europe, rewrote the laws, and built an empire that stretched from Spain to Russia. But every empire eventually falls. And while Napoleon was carving his name into history, a strange event was unfolding across the Atlantic. An event that would set the stage for an incredible twist of fate. Jerome Bonaparte, the youngest brother of the emperor, handsome, reckless, carefree. Unlike his brother Napoleon, Jerome was not obsessed with power. He was obsessed with pleasure. In 1803, as an officer in the French Navy, he was sailing through the Caribbean when he made a critical mistake. He opened fire on a British warship, a reckless act that could have triggered a war. Napoleon was furious. He demanded that Jerome return to France immediately, but Jerome had other plans. He sailed to America, and what happened next changed everything. When Jerome arrived in Baltimore, he was greeted as a celebrity, the young, dashing Bonaparte, brother of the most powerful man in Europe. It didn't take long for him to fall in love with a woman who was everything Napoleon despised, Elizabeth Patterson, an American, beautiful, intelligent, and completely outside of European nobility. Their romance was intense, passionate, dangerous. Despite knowing that Napoleon would never approve, Jerome and Elizabeth married in secret. It was Christmas Eve, 1803. Forbidden love, a union that defied an empire. And when Napoleon found out, he was enraged. Napoleon believed that royal blood should never be mixed with commoners. His brother had defied him, and he saw it as betrayal. Furious, he ordered Jerome to return to France and annulled the marriage by imperial decree. Elizabeth, now abandoned, was devastated. But she was also pregnant. Alone in America, she gave birth to Jerome Napoleon Bonaparte, a child Napoleon would never acknowledge. The emperor erased his existence, ensuring he would never inherit the Bonaparte legacy. He was denied a title, a fortune, and a place in the empire that should have been his. Yet, the boy still carried the Bonaparte name, a name that carried both power and exile. That child, Jerome Napoleon Bonaparte, grew up in the United States, far from the empire that had rejected him. Unlike his father, he never returned to France. Instead, he embraced America, building his own path in a land of opportunity. He was not a prince, had no title, and was denied his birthright, but his name alone carried power. It opened doors, commanded respect, and set him apart. He became a wealthy businessman, a key figure in Baltimore society, known for his intelligence and ambition. And, when he had a son of his own, the Bonaparte legacy in America continued. His son's name was Charles Joseph Bonaparte, and though his lineage had been cast aside by Napoleon, destiny had something remarkable in store for him. Charles was different from his ancestors. He was not a warrior, not a king, not a general, but he was a fighter in his own way, determined and intelligent. He pursued knowledge instead of conquest. He studied at Harvard, became a brilliant lawyer, and soon entered the world of politics. His sharp mind and unwavering principles caught the attention of President Theodore Roosevelt, who, in 1905, appointed him Secretary of the Navy. A year later, in 1906, he became Attorney General of the United States. It was a time of widespread corruption, where crime thrived in the shadows. The government had no true investigative force to uphold justice and protect its people, so Charles took action, determined to change history in his own way. In 1908, under the administration of President Theodore Roosevelt, Charles Bonaparte took a decisive step to reform federal law enforcement. He established a new division within the Department of Justice, dedicated to handling federal crimes more effectively. This elite unit consisted of a small but highly specialized group of federal agents, carefully selected for their investigative skills and ability to operate beyond state jurisdictions. Its name, the Bureau of Investigation (BOI), marked the beginning of a new era in federal policing. Though modest in size, this agency laid the foundation for what we now call the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. Over time, it would grow into the nation's most powerful force against organized crime, corruption, and national security threats. A descendant of Napoleon had just set in motion a transformation that would redefine law enforcement in America for generations to come. Let's think for a moment. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who sought to conquer the world, whose ambition reshaped Europe and whose name became synonymous with power, did not leave behind a dynasty of rulers in his homeland. His empire crumbled, his family lost their thrones, and his dream of an everlasting Bonaparte reign vanished from European history. Yet, ironically, his legacy endured not in France but across the ocean, in a country he never stepped foot in. His lineage, once cast aside, found new purpose in America, not through war and conquest but through law, governance, and justice. Today, the FBI stands as one of the most powerful organizations on the planet, a pillar of security and intelligence. And it all traces back to a Bonaparte, a descendant of the emperor, who carried the name with pride and unknowingly shaped the modern world in a way Napoleon himself could have never imagined. So, was it just a strange coincidence? Or proof that history always finds a way to intertwine the names of power? Let me know what you think in the comments. And remember, history is full of secrets just waiting to be discovered.